What kind of saddle does a space cowboy put on his horse? A satellite. Ho, 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 ho. Thank you. Anyway, so we've seen a lot of really cool space stuff. There's kind of a secondary theme to the Space Apps Challenge this year because Monday's Earth Day, and that was the angle that my friend Charles Lynn and I from the University of Waterloo took. The problem we wanted to look at is everyone knows pollution makes you sick. You get soot in your lungs, you can't breathe well. It costs a lot to take care of people that get sick from pollution. And a lot of people, especially elderly people, will die much earlier than they ought to have because of bad air quality. But exactly how bad is it, and what is the correlation between the two? We looked at a lot of data provided by the United States. The CDC gives great mortality tables. If you have any kind of morbid interest, you can break down by pretty much any kind of disease on a weekly level how many people have died in different regions. The EPA provides great air quality data, released hourly even for some areas. And for what we were looking at is a measure of fine particulate matter of a certain size, under 2.5 micrometers. We also looked at hospitalization costs published by the Agency for Health Research and Quality. And we got all of this data broken down by county and by month. We calculated, first off, what we expected a healthy baseline to be. Of course, people are always going to be going to the hospital and dying from cardiovascular and respiratory conditions. But we wanted to see, given good air quality, what is the expected rate you would see in that county. And based on that, we can look at times of high pollution and get an idea of what number of deaths may have been caused by that spike in smog. And finally, we wanted to look at what it costs to actually send these people to the hospital and take care of them. It's also worth mentioning that no data like this is available in Canada, which is really a shame and something we should be concerned about. Our goal was to get a nice visualization of the correlation between pollution and sickness, put a number, kind of put some numbers, a cost tag on what it takes to take care of these people, and also just the toll in human life, and hopefully make it kind of interactive and personal, so rather than seeing a giant image of smog over the planet, you can zoom in on an area that's closer to home. In general, like any data visualization, we want to increase awareness about an issue, hopefully using data that's rigorous enough for researchers to be interested in, that makes a compelling enough story for an advocate or someone in government to care about it, and that's kind of eye-catching enough for the media to like it. It's up online, but I'm not going to tempt the fates. I'm going to go to one that's on my local computer. So we've got a little map now. You can see the red areas are areas of high pollution. And every month it time shifts a little bit forward, and we get kind of radar pings coming out. These are the places where there's a lot more deaths. Oh, thanks. There we go. Little radar pings coming out that kind of signify where we're a few standard deviations above what we'd expect to see. Again, you can't, of course, prove that these are caused by pollution, but it's a sign that something's going on. We've also filtered it down just to summer months. We found there was a much stronger correlation with times of warm weather as opposed to people dying of, say, pneumonia maybe in the winter. Another interesting thing we found is almost no matter what kind of threshold you put on this, you always have hundreds of people dying in Florida every month. Let's get back here. As I mentioned, there's a high correlation with, in the summer. We'd like to do a more rigorous analysis that takes temperature into account because of that. Over the 5 summers we looked at from 2003 to 2005, there were about 3,000 deaths that with a really high probability we could have said were completely preventable. And it cost about $130 million just to send these people to the hospital and take care of them in those last days. It's hard, of course, to draw precise conclusions. Finding consistent and complete data sets, if you need to compare health records, temperature records, and air quality records, all of that has to line up. For privacy reasons, CDC will suppress any data where it's possible that you might identify an individual. So if you're querying small data sets, you won't have anything available. And determining exactly how you calculate that healthy baseline is a challenge, especially when, like us, you know in advance what story you want to tell, but you don't want to let that bias you. Just really quickly, where we'd like to take this from here, a huge cost is in sickness, not necessarily people who've died. We'd like to include that. We'd like to be able to dig into the county region and look at individual polluters that are measured so you can find out where the pollution is coming from in your city or area, and let users search and filter for that kind of things within the map. Finally, we'd like to provide an API to make this data available to other people, and also let other people go and kind of tell their own stories on top of this map by letting them mark it up in interesting ways. It would be nice to not just see doom and gloom kind of stories, but look at areas where there's actually been success in improving air quality, or looking at things we could do with that money to prevent these deaths rather than cry about how much is being wasted. Thanks very much.